All right, juniors, welcome to what is going to be the last little flip here of Unit 9. All right, and this is going to be 9.3, the short-term causes of World War II for Japan. I'm saying that this is the last, and I didn't forget about Italy. I'm just not going to make one of these for Italy because, in my opinion, it's pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They invade Albania. That's it. That's pretty much it. Italy's pretty big in the North African campaign and is fighting there with Germany, but it really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot in terms of starting the war. So I'm just going to skip that part for now. You guys can view that PowerPoint on your own. I just want to jump into this one because it has pretty big significance moving forward. So let's just jump into it. So we know what happened. Hopefully, we know what happened. This is a little bit of a review about 1932 in Japan, right? The Manchurian crisis, as it's better known. Not going to get into the details here. You guys should be able to remember it, but essentially, Japan really hurt by the Depression. By 1932, it becomes evidently clear to the kind of right-wing radicals that they need to do something to protect their country. So they realize they're going to invade China, Manchuria specifically. They're kind of led by ultranationalism. They're led by this idea of kind of divine leadership and ethnocentricity and all those things that we talked about earlier on in the year. And so they go and they invade China. The League of Nations condemns them for this. They don't really listen to the League of Nations. They wind up withdrawing from the League of Nations. So between 1932 and 1935, Japan is expanding into China. All right. By 1937, we actually have an event. All right. There is expansion in those years from Manchuria all the way up to this, but there's nothing. I don't want to say nothing noteworthy because obviously there's fighting going on, but this is going to be noteworthy. All right. It's the Marco Polo Bridge, and it's 1937. Essentially, there's a fight. There's a training exercise. Someone goes missing. The Japanese want to enter a Chinese territory to look for a missing soldier. The Chinese say no, don't come in. The Japanese go in anyway. All right, that's a very long story short. For the sake of time on this video, you guys can read the bullet points right here if you want a little bit better retelling of that story. All right. Here is the Marco Polo Bridge. All right, it happens right around this, which is where the incident gets its name from. But this is why it's noteworthy, right? So Chiang Kai-shek at the time is going to say this very, very famous quote. Let me highlight it here for you guys. Hello? Here we go. If we allow one more inch of our territory to be lost, we shall be guilty of an unpardonable crime against our race. All right, so the the limit's been reached. Chiang Kai-shek realizes that if he can't keep letting the Japanese do whatever they want to do unchecked. China is in political, economic, military turmoil at the time, as you see in this part right here. All right. China is very, very, very split. You've got Japan in the east and in the north, and then you've got the nationalists and the communists kind of vying for power. Right, we're in the middle of this very long conflict known as the Chinese Civil War, and Mao is kind of raising his communist forces, and Chiang Kai-shek is trying to stabilize the government, fight off the Japanese, fight off the communists, and he realized that something's got to give. All right, and the thing that has to give is war. All right, so here we have another kind of little picture of what's going on. We've got Manchuria up here at the top. We've got the nationalists that are gonna be here in the middle, right? And then the communists are in the kind of northern region of China. All right. So essentially, the thing that has to give is war, right? Chiang Kai-shek is going to declare war on Japan after the Marco Polo Bridge incident breaks out in 1937. All right, kind of fun fact for you guys. Well, not really fun fact, a fact, right? A lot of people do not know this. World War II starts in China in 37. All right. Fact: the conflict that we know as World War II starts in China in 1937, 2 years before the invasion of Poland by the Germans. This is technically called the Second Sino-Japanese War, but it's World War II, right? Um, here's the big part of this little unit here. It's called the Rape of Nanking. I remember when my history teacher taught me about the Rape of Nanking, and it's something that kind of made me take a step back and made me kind of question things around me. And I hope it kind of does the same thing for you guys, because when we talk about World War II, everyone remembers the Nazis and everyone remembers what happened and the atrocities of the Holocaust. And I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But what we don't hear about is kind of mostly Western cultures. I realize some of you are Asian that I'm speaking to right now, and you've probably heard of this. But Western cultures don't really focus a lot on the Rape of Nanking, and it's arguable that what happened in China is far worse than what happened in Germany in the Holocaust. So there's a lot to uncover here and a lot to talk about, and hopefully it sheds a little bit of light. And I remember when I was in high school, I went and I kind of did my own reading and looked at some books about this, and it's really not okay that one is kind of highlighted in mainstream culture. It is a dark point, but it's highlighted, and one is kind of swept under the rug and not talked about a lot. So essentially, what happened is Nanking is a city. The Japanese invaded it. It's a Chinese city. The Japanese invaded it, and between 300 and 600,000 people are going to be murdered. All right. A lot of these are not soldiers, right? I try not to use the word murder when we're talking about war, because it's technically not. The people in China here were murdered because they were women, they were elderly, they were men not in the military, they were children. They were pretty much anyone that the Japanese could find, they killed. And that's murder. They started by taking out the military of Nanking, which is unfortunate, but it's kind of what happens in war, right? They take them all as prisoners of war. They take them to the outskirts of town and they mow them down with machine guns. You're not supposed to do that in war. If you take a prisoner of war, they're supposed to be prisoner. They're not supposed to be murdered. They're murdered here. All right. Then the Japanese kind of turn on the city itself. They start burning down businesses. They start taking women and raping them, mass raping them, right? Several men at a time, raping one woman. When they're done with them, they kill them in really brutal ways. I'm not going to get into this for the sake of this video, but if you want to do your own research, I kind of strongly encourage it if you have the stomach for it. Babies are going to be killed in again horrible ways. Essentially, what all this leads to is, at the time, right here at the bottom, there is a reporter. There is an American reporter in China at the time, and they see what happens and they report it. Right. The New York Times runs the first story on the Rape of Nanking, and the American people see the atrocities that are going on overseas, and they see the horrible nature in which the Japanese treated their enemies and what they did to these women and what they did to these children, and we were angered, right? We were upset. Here's where that racism that has been brewing up in America, this kind of anti-Japanese sentiment, this anti-Asian sentiment that has been brewing, it really starts to bubble over, and we see the Japanese as kind of barbarians, similar to what we felt about the Germans during World War I. All right, here are just some pictures that I'm going to go through here. All right, again, not supposed to kill a prisoner of war. This is a mass grave of, again, kind of babies. Not easy to watch, not easy to talk about, but I think it's important to talk about because it did happen, right? Where's my mouse? Here it is. They beheaded the males of the city and kind of outlined the walls of the heads of the decapitated men to kind of send a signal of who held the power. A very, very famous picture. This actually made it back to America. It shows the destruction of what's going on in Nanking and kind of captures people's hearts right here by seeing that baby kind of crying. All right. A little bit more about kind of the women that happened here. Again, we see I'm not going to highlight this. We see mass rape, right? These are women, and they got brought to town hall, they got raped, and then they got killed. All right, and some of them got beheaded, and some of their children got beheaded, and animals got beheaded, and it was terrible. It was a genocide against a group of people. Um, Last picture I'll show on this, right? Terrible atrocity. If you're interested in it, I strongly suggest you kind of do your own research on this a little bit, because again, it is an untold story of history, right? But I'm gonna go back through all these pictures and tell you what the significance here is. All right, so we're back here, nice and clean, right? If that bothered you, I am sorry, but again, I feel that it's important to shed a little bit of light onto what that was. Um, so America is going to see what Japan is doing, both in terms of their military conquest of China as well as their barbarian kind of a treatment of the Chinese people, barbaric treatment of the Chinese people. So essentially, what happens is shortly after the rape of Nanking is publicized, something happens in America. All right. All right. FDR is going to, so after the invasion, right? The invasion of China, there's an embargo placed on Japan from the United States. But after we see what happens in the rape of Nanking, we call it the moral embargo. And this is where, again, that barbaric treatment comes into play. The moral embargo by 1938 is going to include oil, right? We include oil in the embargo against Japan. Um, this is going to be the reason why the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941. All right. It's because of the embargo that we place on them due to the treatment that they had against the Chinese, and also against the Koreans, which aren't highlighted here. That comes later, but they're pretty terrible to the Koreans as well. Um, this is the big takeaway from this unit. All right, when we get to history of the Americas, the Second World War, it's going to be very important that you understand and remember the fact that the bombing of Pearl Harbor was not an unprovoked action. America provoked a war. Provoked a war by doing this. All right, embargoing oil against the Japanese, an island nation that was at war. America knew that they would either have to forfeit their war and forfeit their conquest, which we were pretty sure wasn't going to happen, or they would have to declare war on the United States. There weren't many other ways out of that situation. So that's the background to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and it's really the big thing that I wanted to highlight in this unit, other than kind of shedding some light onto what happened in China with the rape of Nanking. I feel like this video was supposed to be 5 minutes, and I feel like it's well over 5 minutes, so I'm going to end it there. You're not really going to have a big assignment here with Japan. The assignment's going to come elsewhere. I'll break that down in the weekly breakdown for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, if you were bothered by the images you saw here, I really do apologize, but I think it's my duty as a historian to kind of show you guys that, and it's your duty as the next generation to learn from pictures like that. Yeah, let me know if you guys need anything, and be good.